Welcome back, everybody, and happy Friday, even though this is going to be posted on Saturday, which is when you're likely watching this, but this is a Friday night. And the reason why I'm mentioning Friday for the third time is because I'm really thankful to Bo Martynowska for making time on a Friday evening for me. I am sure, Bo, you have better things to do, and you're very kind to join me on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
It's my pleasure. And again, based on the things that I know of you and the places that I've seen you on, the shows that I have seen you on, looking at the time that all of us are in, I was wondering if to you this would resemble more of the Umbrella Academy or the Designated Survivor. What do you think we're in right now?
Oh my goodness. Neither. Right. I actually did a show about a pandemic right before the pandemic
Oh,
unfolded.
wow.
So we didn't get renewed for season 2, and I don't know or won't pretend that it was a coincidence. That's really not
Mhm.
to my knowledge. But I would say if a show that I did resembled the state of the world, it would probably be V Wars. Which is on Netflix, and one of the few shows that actually touch on pandemics in the recent year. There's a new one called Utopia that's
Mhm.
out right now as well.
Okay, we'll make sure that we'll post it. So everybody, please go check out V Wars. And hey, people, talk to Netflix. See if we can get this on for a second season once this pandemic is over. So we can we can participate in these types of alternate reality things when they're actually alternate reality, as opposed to what we're currently living through. One of the reasons why I mentioned kind of designated survivor is because that's where I saw you, and I remember Tiffany. It was very nice character, and you had a chance to kind of play. You were there for 4 episodes, which was lovely, and it's an interesting show. I'm ready to admit that I stopped watching it because there's so much drama out here that I don't need drama somewhere else. Once things settle down, I'll go back and finish it. But I saw the first 3 seasons, I believe,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll catch up on it later. But I enjoyed you there. What was it like, kind of as an actor, stepping into an environment that resembles a place that we all see on TV anyway, which is the White House or the press room?
It was really strangely familiar.
Yeah.
Like I felt really comfortable immediately
Hmm.
um, because it looks so real. Like you walk onto the set and it is the White House.
Hmm.
It's all of the rooms. I took a nap in the Oval Room. It was like in between set changes. It's really beautiful, and they put a lot of work into that. Um, as a as somebody who's a Polish Canadian and isn't an American, though I've spent lots of time in the U.S., I can't vote and so forth. So there is a part of it that that is very make believe for me, regardless of that. But it was all the more reason for me to do a lot of research and gain insights from wonderful people I worked with, like Cal Penn, who was a real life advisor at the White
Yep.
House, in between like different acting gigs. So he was really wonderful to work with.
Yeah, Cal, who I love, and I've seen him since the beginning of his career, but Cal actually gave up acting for a while because he wanted to work and see if he can actually make a difference. So he went to work for Barack, and he was there for a while, and then he came back to acting. So I always found it kind of humorous. You leave acting, you go do politics, and then you get into a show where you act as somebody who you've basically been in a way in real life. So I thought that was an interesting transition back into the acting business for Cal.
Yeah, totally, totally. He's such a lovely human to work with as well, and he has this dog that I'm obsessed with. I think
Oh,
her name was Piggy, and she was just this like big bulldog that would just hang out in the makeup trailer and just so cute. I couldn't really handle it.
That's awesome. I did not know that, so that's very good to know. Uh, were you a fan of Cal? Like, kind of most people grew up watching all of the films that he was in.
Yeah, I mean, I admire so many people in the industry.
Mhm.
Um, but I never like I've never been starstruck, I would say. So that's never been like a, oh my God, like I can't work with this person because I'm having a panic attack. You know what I mean? But and I think that that's something about my process maybe, because by the time I get to set, like if I've already gotten the part and past the maybe freak out in my head,
Mhm.
at that point, I see them as their character as much as possible, so that I don't have this like internal um, vacancy when we're actually acting. So,
That's very helpful. So does that mean that when you're on set, you try to stay in character as much as possible as well?
I think to a degree, like there's
Mhm.
um, I think it's really healthy to keep up that stamina that is required as an actor working 13, 14, 15 hours every day, doing the same thing over and over again. It's athleticism, so it does help if you stay in it, unless it's like something really traumatic and sad, then maybe take a break, take five. but yeah, I think so. I think it does make a difference. I've also had really weird days where it's like in between crying takes, you're like, haha, hey John, and then like and rolling, and then you're like, oh, I'm here again. So it's I think, to answer your question more specifically, maybe it depends on the day, whether the moon is full. I'm not sure.
No, it makes sense. And when you're in those moments, because I wanna ask you about it, of getting into that moment and having to cry and really being a dramatic. Um, what's your process for kind of getting in there and staying in there take after take? Because some people are just blessed with having a ability to get into their emotions and pull them out and then put them back. So I am not one of those people. I wonder what your process is like.
I think every role is different, and I'm different now than say who I was years ago when I first started acting, where I sort of I would project my feelings from whatever was going on in my life, which is fine. But you can really traumatize yourself if you're not careful. Like I think it's unless you have healthy boundaries and some way to cope afterwards, it's probably not the most. It's not that safe to bring up old stuff from your past. Like it's there, you can use it, but you have to be really aware. So my process now is to um, allow myself to feel through that character, which is what I did before. But what I do differently now is that, yes, I really do genuinely believe that whatever is written on this script and whatever I'm doing with the other actor is happening to me through this vessel. But later on, I almost like it's ritualistic for me in that like I meditate, I take this energy off of me. You know, whether it's shaking it out and dancing, or going for like a really sweaty bike ride, making sure that I set the intention to take this character's shame, pain, guilt, whatever I've acquired, take it out, because honestly, I don't want it. I love being able to create art, but we have to protect ourselves as performers who have, other aspects in our lives, like partners and family. And I mean, I'm pretty sure we've all been, as artists, guilty of taking something out on a loved one. If I can reduce that just a little bit, yeah.
Thank you for speaking my language. I'm really happy that you said all of these things, because one of the questions I was going to ask you is, what is your process of finding your way home? Because we know who we are, we know what our vibrational state is, and being around and kind of diving into that energy of the character, that's a heavy process, and we need to be really careful of how we remove all of that. So you've already mentioned a number of ways of doing that. My favorite is starting on musical. So I watch musicals because that's my vibration, that's my happy zone. So it gets me kind of out of that. So meditation, and then protections and all sorts of amulets and then mechanisms and crystals and everything else I can find. But yeah, we definitely do that. So I'm glad that you're doing it as well. It's really, really important.
When I remember.
Nice. Yeah.
What I think can be challenging though is it's different if you've already got the part and you're performing and you're doing that. I feel like it's easier to come to a conclusion. But I think what people forget is when you're auditioning and you have like, okay, at 4 o'clock I have an audition for this person, and they're manic depressive and they're experiencing this in their life. And then at 6 o'clock I've got this 20 pages that I'm already memorizing, and this character is like off the wall, super macho, and just like contrast. Learning how to take things off in between, because like I think that's I'm still working on. Wow.
I'm going to share my approach. Everybody who's heard me talking about it, fast forward if you like. But I'm going to share my approach, and here's what I found, because I just had to do this pretty much as you said. I had an audition for a show we cannot name, but I had an audition where it was 3 characters, 11 pages, 5 scenes. 2 scenes for one character, 2 scenes for another, 1 scene for another, in 2 different languages. One character is just this angry at the world, kind of a low-level military guy who is just, hates himself really and the life and takes it out on other people. The next character is this complete hyper energy scientist who is happy to see people because he never gets a chance to talk to anybody because he's coding in a underground bunker for the past 30 years. And then immediately you have to switch into this high ranking military official, the god kind of persona. And I had to do that back to back to back for the same kind of things. So that segmentation of, okay, I need to find this character, then I need to release this, I need to come back to me, okay, hi, Alan, Guy, okay, moving off to here, then releasing that, then coming off again. Like that, the way that I do it is I call it the butterfly method effect. You know how in butterfly method, you kind of, any change that you make in the past is going to change everything. So I find to align with the character, I find a point in my life where I can take a side turn, and that turn will eventually get me into who the other character is and allow me to be grounded and natural, because it comes from the same root of one tree, but it's kind of this alternate dimension version of me. With that's where the imagination work is very simple. That's where all of the emotional work is very simple, and it's simple for me to come back because it's still the same root and I know who I am. So I kind of I go back, like I look at the character, I read the sides, things come in, sometimes it's written on the page, sometimes it's just a feeling for what this character is. I write them down, and then I go and I'm like, okay, this could have happened if I did this and this. Oh, yeah, I feel that. That would have been a very different me. And then that's how you kind of embody that particular person. So
Nice.
taking all of that off and going from this guy who's this military just hates everybody to this hi, this completely different energy spectrum was really cool. And what I loved, I'm going to stop the story in a second. What I loved as an actor is when I was cutting all of these scenes after the fact, I look at this military guy, I look at the scientist, and then I look at the high level military. I see three different people. I'm like, yes, it worked.
Yeah.
So,
It's great. That's such a great way to also integrate yourself. I feel like so many times we can get into this trap of thinking we have to put on a character rather than letting the character sort of find their way within us.
yeah.
They're already there. You can't, like, no matter what, if I'm reading for three different characters, no matter what I do, I'm gonna look like this. Like, I can't get out of this body unless you put a lot of prosthetics on me and costuming and makeup, and that's wonderful. But it's all here, you know. And but like to go inward, that's the real change.
Mhm.
That's really cool.
I started developing this method over a period of years because I would try to be somebody else and it wouldn't feel right. I couldn't quite get grounded in it and I couldn't quite really, make it organic. And one of my friends who's not an actor said, I'm looking at your acting and you're a really interesting person. I would just rather watch you on screen. And I said, thank you. And it kind of went back to what some actors are saying, which is, hey, all of these characters are just me.
Mm.
And in my version and my method is that they're not me, but it's the same root. And it's an alternate reality version of what I could have been like.
So this is like an interdimensional approach that you have.
Yes.
Where you're like you're time traveling. You're inputting some kind of a sequence. You're like Alan version 555.B, and then you emerge.
It's like
great.
Barry Allen on The Flash, right? If you're watching The Flash, it's Barry from Earth 26, or Barry from Earth 5. It's Barry, but it's a different Barry. Same thing here. So that's kind of my method of working. And going back to what we were originally saying, that's my way back. Because I'm an empath. I have a feeling you are as well. And all of that energy and all of those emotions and kind of the world that you occupy for that time, it was hard for me to get out of that. So this method allows me to know exactly who I am and to be able to leave that behind. So it became much simpler for me to occupy because I know me, I can go play, but I can come back quickly.
I feel like maybe that's something I want to ask you is, do you think that are we not changing? Because I want to say that I know myself, but then something happens or I think something, I'm like, oh, that's new. And so I wonder if even though I play a character or have an audition and I come back to whatever version of me this is, I can't deny that there hasn't been something changed slightly even.
Yeah, that's human nature. That's who we are. We are always growing. So if we go back to that tree example, right? I am this, this root, but every time I find something new in myself, that's another little, growth. That's another little branch that just makes up the tree of who I am. That's normal. What we have to be careful with is, and I'm sure you've had this too, but you would have thoughts coming into your mind, and then it's like, really, that's not my thought. That's not my thought. And then you're like, okay, good. I'm not this thing that I was worried that I would be, because that's not your thought. The people who are not actors who may be watching this think that we're schizophrenic, which we're not. We're just playing with a lot of different energies, and you're embodying people. Imagine being somebody for a while. That thing is going to stay with you, and that means a mental imprint, a physical imprint, and an energetic imprint. That imprint needs to be let go. So yes, we change because you studied psychology. So from a psychological perspective, right? Anytime that somebody goes through an experience where they either overcome a fear, they kind of step out and then they discover things about themselves. So it's still you, but now you're a different version of you, because you are all of a sudden stronger and you start questioning, what else can I accomplish? Or people, when they're going through past life regression therapy or any kind of therapy, right? You deal with a traumatic experience, and once you actually go through that, it allows you to expand. So we never stop growing. And whatever version of Alan this is right now is going to be different half an hour from now, in a tiny little way or a big one, depending on what happens.
We'll try to make sure that it's positive. I won't say anything that will like completely, implode your world, is my hope.
Listen, if it does, then there's the meditation, there's the musicals to go to. I think we'll be fine. So you mentioned that you're Polish, and you mentioned that you're Canadian, both of which I want to ask you about. But let's start with the name, because it's Bo Martynowska, but I see on some of your IMDb credits it's as Bo Martin. So which one do you prefer? Which one do you use more for work, or is it really kind of both?
You know what? I am a first generation immigrant, in the sense that I was born in Poland and moved here when I was quite young. And I don't think that from my upbringing there was this like permission granted for a young person to go be an artist, especially like post-communism Poland. So I didn't know that I could do that. And even though my parents encouraged me to be artistic and paint and draw, and I was quite obsessed with all of the above, I never imagined that I would do that. So I didn't have like a lot of encouragement in the beginning with that. But eventually I found my way to it. But I had this complex when I entered into the profession because of, some things that happened in school. You get sort of, there's a lot of prejudice and things that came up. And so I felt sort of, I don't like using the word shame, but it's probably the most accurate. I felt a bit ashamed and wanted so badly to assimilate and just be this like Western Canadian person who passes for Canadian. It was only when people saw my last name that would they question me, where are you from? Or, like, you're so exotic looking, like these, like that would come up every now and then, which was so weird to me, by the way. But
what does that even mean?
It doesn't offend me too much. It's just it's just a bit like invasive, but I think it just, well, at the core of it, it means where are you from? Because exotic implies that you're not from here. Right. But in Canada, everyone's from all over, so it's just kind of a weird thing. Yeah. So I just, as I said, developed a bit of a complex and decided that when I became an actor, and it came to like choosing your name or a stage name with ACTRA, the Actors Union here in Canada, that I would shorten my name. So I was born Joanna Justyna Martynowska, which is a mouthful for people who aren't from Poland or the Slavic tribes and countries.
Mhm.
And so I shortened it to my nickname as a kid, which is my mom's name, Bo, and Martynowska to Martin or Martin. But about a year ago, after doing, I mean, the spiritual growth continues forever. But a year ago, I was just like, wow, I really changed my name because I was insecure that I would get like typecast or, um, I just felt uncomfortable with the whole concept of that identity. I wanted to be this like clean slate, but then I realized how over that I was, and that in itself is acting from a place of fear, which is food for the ego, and I'm just not there anymore. So on Father's Day last year, I told my dad I would be changing it back to Bo Martynowska, and he was so happy because he was just like, "Why are you hiding who you are? Like, what is this shame you have?" I'm like, "Well, Dad, let me tell you." But he doesn't get it in the same way. Like, of course, he's experienced a lot of racism, and I mean, I feel like everybody does to some degree. But I realized how I was doing a disservice to myself by not being authentic, and a disservice to anybody who might relate to me, because it's I value honesty above all, and so I have to be honest with myself.
Thank you for sharing that. And I'm sorry you had bad experiences. That seems very strange and very silly. Having gone through, things myself, I can understand that. And by the way, full disclosure, I was born Konstantin Markusevich Manoilenko. Uh,
Ah!
so, going through the immigration process, walking into an ESL, teacher's room at 14, she looked at my name. She said, "No."
No, we're gonna.
Yeah. So it became, she gave me an Americanized version of my first name, which became Calvin with a Kelvin, which maybe she was studying chemistry at the time. I'm not certain. So I still don't know why she spelled it that way. So everybody was like, so my Russian friends would call me, Konstantin. The American friends would call me Calvin. I legalized Calvin, changed my last name to my dad's, last name when we became citizens. And then through numerology and other things, I basically said, what do I really feel like? Because it's not Constantine and it's not Calvin. So numerology, I became Alan, and that became
Oh.
now it feels home. So the people who haven't talked to me in years still call me Calvin or still call me Constantine, which is fine, but that's not me. And this honest expression of who you are, same. That's I'm Alan Vaisberg. That's me. It feels me as opposed to everything else that was in the past. I wasn't trying to run away from it. It was just not me.
Yeah. Well, I say that about my first name, maybe because so it's Joanna in
Yeah.
Polish, but nobody calls me that because in Polish there's these diminutive forms. So I was just in Poland for a few months, and everyone there calls me Asia or Joasia or Ashunia or Ashenko. These are these like little cute names, and I respond to that. That to me is like cute. But if you were to write it, it's Asha's Asia, so it like doesn't translate. And then when I was growing up here, for the most part, people would say Joanna,
Yeah.
and that to me was like, oh, it's so like harsh, and it's not Joanna. So I just felt like it wasn't mine the same way that you know.
My mother's name is Ася. So yeah, Asha, I say in Russian, and everybody tries to spell it as Asia, which is the continent, which is like, no, that's not it. So we literally had to put it Asya for people to start kind of saying Asya. So
Uh,
yes, my mom went went through that.
it's always like, "Ugh, again."
Yeah. But I didn't realize that Joanna was Asha.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
that's cool. Again, I'm from the eastern part of Ukraine, so my native is Russian. Ukrainian is the language that I learned and spoke. I can't speak it anymore. I can read and understand most, I think. But Russian because it was the background. But I knew that I have lots of Polish friends, and I could understand kind of half of what they were saying. Same
Hmm.
thing with other Slavic, like Bulgarian friends and others. So I knew that there is a same base, but I did not know that that Joanna is the same as Asya. I'm going to tell my mom; she'll be happy to hear. Very cool. Speaking of kind of typing and look, because if people look at the work that you have done, they will have seen you with long blonde hair. They will have seen you with long dark hair, black hair. They will have seen you with shorter blonde hair that you have right now, and what you have. So, um, was this kind of character choices, or were these
Hmm.
times where you just decided that this was what Bo was feeling like, and then you had to redo your headshots and everything else? So,
Um, I am a creature addicted to change and novelty.
yeah,
I love playing with my own appearance quite a bit. Um, my first agent, had to put up with, bless her, she had to put up with a lot of like, so I did this thing, and my hair is brown, and but I have photos. Like, I always made sure that it wasn't like me going into an audition looking different than a headshot. But I felt, despite these stories that I would hear from other actors, especially starting out, no, you can't change your hair. No, you can't get tattoos. You can't do this, this, this. That to me was really controlling and frightening.
yeah,
Um, as an artist, I like expressing myself in every way, and that felt like very suffocating. So I always took liberties, but I also understood that it would come with a consequence. I knew, in cutting my hair super super short, and bleaching it blonde, like when I was like short and spiky, basically shaved, that I wouldn't be going out for certain roles, even though I could wear a wig. But I feel like sometimes people lack imagination. So I think that it's more about what I want. Um, However, I do think it's important to have some kind of understanding with your agent. Just to preface what I said earlier, like, I have a really wonderful agent who I have these conversations with because I can, because it's safe for me to do so, and she creates that environment. But ultimately, it's very supportive, and I I'm really thankful that I can be with someone who supports my personal choices.
yeah. And if I may offer, I have not seen one photo where, regardless of the hair or hairstyle or color that you were wearing, that you didn't look fantastic.
Oh,
So
thank you.
I found that quite remarkable. I'm like, it doesn't matter what she's wearing; it looked really, really good. So I think that would be an advantage. And when people look at it from the casting side, they should see, hey, not only can she really embody multiple types, but she looks good in all of them. So they should use that to their benefit, not you know remove you from consideration for certain roles.
I would hope so. I think that casting directors have so much on their plate that the last thing they probably want to worry about is, okay, does Bo have long brown hair right now? Because that's what we need, but we're not sure. I love wigs. I've always loved wigs, and you can get really beautiful hair that is super convincing and make it work. But I think there's always a little bit of that fear, that you're wasting someone's time. So from their perspective, because casting directors are, they work hard to have the relationships with their clients, and um, say I went out for something and I was wearing a wig during my audition, and then I show up on set and they didn't know it was a wig, and they had planned for me to be like doing this running scene and my hair is flying off, and I think it just like adds an element of complication. So unless it's like the lead role of something, I won't put on a wig for an audition.
Yeah.
Because I just don't want to rock the boat that much. And I like my hair. I'm quite happy with it.
Yeah. You mentioned something, so it's a little touchy, but I think from the acting perspective, it's very relevant. So if you're interested in answering this question, please do. You mentioned yourself being somebody who loves change, and you're always exploring and finding. You're also in a career that is constant change. Have you found that it affects your relationships in a certain way, or have you found that it actually enhances them?
Have I found that it changed the change of my career? Does that affect my?
Let me phrase it better. You're in as actors, you're in a constant state of flux. One never knows where you're going to be, how long you're going to be, the type of project, where it's going to be shot. So there is no consistency or stability. And then you as a person, you mentioned that you love change. So putting those two things together, how does that affect your personal relationships with people?
I don't think it does. Because if I wasn't an actor, I would still be this person who wakes up and decides to go across the country for whatever reason, or disappear for a few days on a road trip, or start a new project. I was a flight attendant for 4 years while I did my undergrad at York University for psychology, and I balanced those things well. I was never home. I was flying 4 days a week. The rest I was in school from like 9 a.m. till 9 p.m. in lectures. I skipped a lot of classes, but I was good at studying, cramming, whatever. So my life has always been quite unpredictable, and really, I don't think that. I think we buy into a false sense of security. A lot of people do. The truth is you don't know if you're going to go outside and get hit by a bus. That's pretty unpredictable too. But because we don't like talk about it all the time, except for on podcasts and shows and interviews. I'm kidding. I don't think that it really has an effect on me that it wouldn't have otherwise.
Good. I'm happy to hear that, because I was hoping that this would not lead into a tragic story of I can only be single because nobody can put up with all of this. I'm happy that it did not go that route. Perfect. Okay. Going back to the acting work that you have done, we talked about your process, which I find fascinating. I'm really happy that that you went into getting into the character and then getting out of the character, which is really important. Is there a particular method that you use or something in your acting toolbox that you utilize more often than not? Be it Meisner, be it viewpoints, be it Stanislavski, be it Uda, be it whatever that we all kind of have learned. Is there one in particular that you use more often than not?
I came into acting in a very unorthodox way.
Okay.
And so my instinct is not to go to page 54 in an actor prepares and go. That would probably make me get into my head more. I quit being a flight attendant and dropped out of my 4th year of university and got a job at a law firm where they were shooting videos for their wealth management subsidiary. So I would stand in front of a camera and read off of a teleprompter. And I was like, oh, I kind of like this. This is interesting. And after a while, I started asking, how do you become an actor? Well, Bo, you get an agent. Oh, well, how do you do that? And the videographer laughing is like, keep asking questions. But so I went into acting very blindly, sort of just started auditioning for things, not knowing what I was doing. And I think what I started working with is what I use the most. And what I started working with is just like, oh, I'm here. There's this person in front of me. It's all about our relationship, just being super in the moment. When I catch myself being in my head, I drop in, I'm like, smell the air, like, what are you wearing? What is this other person wearing? Like, why are you here? Like, what is actually happening? The realism is of the moment is the most important thing for me. So it's the truth, what's actually happening. And then all the nuggets of wisdom and any course I've taken or anybody that I've studied with has been really beneficial for me, but I can't apply any of that if I'm just in my head. So the plug is like being actually there, especially for someone, I can speak for myself, like me, who is very like dreamy and can get can fly away in thought.
I like that a lot. Because people say drop in all the time, but the taking a breath, or what does this smell like, that really, again, that grounds you, that drops you in, and you're wearing the clothes that are not normal to you. You're wearing something that the character is wearing. It allows you to step in. I love that. I will add that to my toolbox. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So you've been on very large sets and you've been on small ones. What, if you had to pick, without offending anybody, if you had to pick your favorite experience so far in your career, what would that be?
My favorite experience?
Yep.
Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to say, so I was on set of V Wars, where I played a recurring role of this character named Detective Elise Chambers. So super official. And it was such a fun role for me to play because it was me playing a detective that was maybe not so obvious. A lot of you hear detective and you think there's this like gumshoe and they're really serious and not a young woman who's 5'4" and maybe soft spoken. And that was really a lot of fun. But my favorite moment ever was when we weren't rolling. It was on my birthday and I was on the couch with Laura, who plays my girlfriend on the show. She's one of the leads. And like I think we cut and all of a sudden the lights went out and I'm like, what's happening? And all of a sudden I hear people sing around and the producers and the director and Brad Turner directing that episode. Everyone comes out and I remember he said something like, what's happening, in this like mean voice. I'm like, oh no, they pissed off the director. And he comes out and the whole crew surrounds us and they sing me happy birthday with the cake and like, oh, gutted. I was gutted, and I just remember thinking, take in, remember this, like remember this moment. It is so beautiful. And I was just so grateful, so grateful.
No, that's a wonderful thing that they did. Really, really nice. So,
So,
wrap things up.
Mhm.
If you had to give one of acting advice to a young Bo who is, reading those lines from the prompter, and the videographer is not giving her any good advice, what
what
advice would
advice
And if the video is not what?
since the videographer was not giving you any good advice,
Oh,
what advice would you have given yourself from now, the young Bo?
oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I would her to use the fear as a compass. That the things that are terrifying you, that's where you need to go. That's what you need to explore. And I did that too, but I did it like painfully slowly. Like something would scare me. Like my first on ever was for this music video, and I had to dance a little bit and prepare a bit. And I took a train and a streetcar and for like, I don't know, 45, 50 minutes to the East End. And I got to the door and I go to knock and I just, nope. And I turned around and I went all home. And then I think I did that one more time with something else where I, like into the hallway and then I left. But I kept going. There was some weird instinct in me that's like, nah, you just gotta keep going. And I wish I could have maybe gotten there faster. But I do believe that everything comes in its right time. So although I give past Bo, that advice, I understand why everything had to be the way it is. And maybe that's advice to future Bo. Of just like, you're gonna remember this, remember the thing you're saying right now later. It'll help.
Well, now you have it on tape. So,
I can't forget this. I'm gonna say, hi, future Bo. Remember me?
and you gave the name of what this segment is going to be, which is use your fear. Use the fear. Thank you so much, Bo. It's been a joy. I really appreciate you coming on and answering, some, tough and questions. And it'll be helpful, hopefully, to the future Bo as well. But it'll be helpful to the people who are watching. And
Thank you so much for having me.
my pleasure. And thanks to everybody for tuning in to another episode of Love Acting.